food producers. This session is part of day 3 on the people's counter-mobilization to transform corporate food system. To start with a few housekeeping notices, as you will have seen, we are planning to record the meeting. So if you don't want to appear on any of the recordings, you may not switch on your camera. During the whole session, we would ask you to keep your microphones muted and to switch off your camera unless when you are speaking. As I mentioned, we do have translation interpretation. On the bottom of your screen, you should see a sign for interpretation where you can choose whether you want to listen in English, in French, or if you keep it off, you can listen to both languages. Whenever you are speaking, please remember that we have interprets, so try to speak not too fast. Thanks already to the interpreters. And so for those who are just joining us, please put an E of English or an F for French in front of your name. That will be helpful later when we have breakout groups. And also, please, everybody keep your microphone muted whenever you are not speaking. Thanks. Okay. So let's get it going. I'm Barbara. I am from Agroecology-in-Action and the Center for Agroecology, Water and Resilience. And together with Philip from FIAN International, I am excited to be facilitating this session on technology sovereignty today. And this session is co-convened by ECVC, Friends of the Earth Europe, ETC Group, and Schola Campesina. As I mentioned today, we are already in the 3rd day of the people's counter-mobilization to transform corporate food systems. And our counter-mobilization happens in parallel to the UN Food Systems Pre-Summit, right? And the opening session of our counter-mobilization on Sunday and in the discussions yesterday, we have been focusing quite a lot on the false solutions of the so-called nature-based solutions and digitalization that are being promoted right now at the pre-summit of the FSS. In the sessions of the people's counter-mobilization yesterday, we've heard splendid analysis of the interests driving the UN FSSs and the bigger challenges at stake. But in the sessions today, we are focusing on real grassroots-driven solutions. Our discussions today cover food sovereignty, seed sovereignty, feminist economic alternatives, justice-based alternatives, agricultural workers, universal food access, and much more. And in this session, in the next 90 minutes, we will focus on technology in the framework of food sovereignty. Technology is very present in the processes so far around the UN FSSS, as one of the reasons to organize this corporate UN summit is in the end the adaptation of the governance mechanisms of food systems to make them more adapted to the digital technologies they're promoting. This requires less participation, less democratic decision-making. And that is reflected in who is invited at the table of the summit, who is not. The lack of transparency and accountability in the processes is running up to the summit. This is also reflected in the role that is given to a certain type of science, technology and innovation, and the lack of considering other knowledges and solutions. It has been repeated over and over the past few days. The World Economic Forum and its affiliates have been controlling the summit's design, its structure, processes, governance, and content. The summit seems to be a smokescreen to be pushing for solutions of digitalization and financialization that pave the way for the future the tech companies are imagining. And this instead of working towards real solutions that are in the interest of food producers, indigenous and other local foodways that work with natures. Also, as Sofia Monsalve was saying yesterday, why are certain solutions being discussed and not others, such as the wars, which is the main cause of hunger in places such as Yemen? So today, we will set our own agenda. We will look at technology within the frame of food sovereignty. And instead of discussing the solutions of the tech lords, such as Amazon or Alibaba, that are reshaping food systems to turn them into data systems, as Jim Thomas from ETC Group mentioned yesterday, we focus now on questions of what are the technologies and innovations that small farmers need, want, and are constructing. Technologies that help build food sovereignty. Let's build our own tech agenda today. So how are we going to do that? We have a session that is in 3 parts. We will start with a panel discussion, which will be followed in which we will have the views of small-scale producers, fisherfolk, pastoralists, and their views on technologies. We will have a second part in which we will go in breakout groups by language, and a final discussion. So to start introducing the panel, I will hand over the word to Philip. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. And also welcome from my side. My name is Philip Seufert. I work with FIAN International, which is a human rights organization working on promoting the right to food. And yeah, we are very happy to co-organize this session today together with the other organizations that Barbara mentioned. And I have the pleasure now to announce or to lead us through the first part of the meeting, which will consist of a couple of inputs from speakers. And the first speaker will be Andrea Ferrante from Schola Campesina. Schola Campesina is an international agroecology school that is based in Italy and whose goal is to develop and share knowledge and agroecology, and also specifically on global governance of food and agriculture. And what we have asked Andrea to do is to situate us a bit and to kind of contextualize the discussion that we are having, and kind of sharing, let's say, some background on this kind of broad push for technologies, digital technologies, but also other technologies that we are seeing in everywhere currently, and also specifically in the Food Systems Summit, as Barbara has already said. This is a huge topic, and I'm sure Andrea could speak for a very long time and would be very exciting, but we are short of time. So Andrea will speak for around 10 minutes, and then we will have a couple of reflections from food producers organizations. So please, Andrea, you have the floor.
Thank you, Philip. It's a real honor to introduce this very interesting workshop. And we directly go on the hot topic, because we are using those 2 words, innovation from one side everywhere, and the other mantra is global trade, you know? And those are the 2 big pillars that we have in the UN Food Systems Summit. Then we dig a bit, and in innovation and technology, at the end, it's only digitalization. And we understand that, for example, in the way that it's understood the word innovation, it's only technology innovation. There is nothing about social innovation. There is nothing about a much wider concept of who's leading innovation and for who we are doing innovation. So this is extremely important, because when we are talking about digitalization, in that sense, they use digitalization to support a food system that they have very clear in mind that it's a food system with a corporate capture from one side and global trade from the other side. So that has to be clear, that the words that are being used till now are being totally captured from this way to see the world. And this is extremely important. And this is why, for example, digitalization today, it means mainly the fact that we are using more and more those platforms, as we have said, and those platforms like Alibaba or Amazon, and they have all a narrative saying that these platforms are for smallholder, to introduce a smallholder to the market. But at the same time, all this kind of digitalization reduce a lot the capacity to share. It's much more on individual base. So you are left alone, you are more individualized, you are more left alone, you are more weak, then somebody else can jump on it. This is the idea. We need to make more weak the smallholder. We need to make more weak the organization of smallholders. We need to individualize all our action. And this is extremely important that we take in consideration, because at the same time, they are extracting data from you. And extracting data is essential because we are talking about knowledge. This is what we need to understand. We are talking about knowledge. In agroecology, we always say that the pillar of agroecology is farmers' knowledge. And in that sense, we put very great importance to women's knowledge, because it's at the base of a food system that is based with a right-based approach. But this knowledge is exactly the knowledge that we want to extract from us. And they want to concentrate. And the way they do that is through a datafication of this knowledge and concentrate this data in the hands of few. And so this is the process that it's there. So how to extract the process, how to extract the data, how to accumulate the data in a way that we cannot use. And this can open this very big discussion of the open source data and the big data that in principles are data. They always say that those data are data for everyone, but then you can understand that if you don't have very powerful tools, you will never use those big data. So at the end, those big data will be used only by few. The same that are concentrating the data that are collecting through the food system. And if you want, the seed sector is a paramount explanation of what is happening. No, they are extracting all the data, and the digital sequencing of the DNA of the seeds is a way to extract the work that has been done by farmers in thousands of years of selection and breeding, and that work is concentrated in the hands of few companies that are making the digital sequencing. Then very often they come back to your field and they start to make inquire, they start to ask you something, and at the end they are collecting the data. And this is pure extractivism. So this is the issue, how we oppose ourselves to this pure extractivism, that it's linked to a clear idea on how they see the future of the food system. The future of the food system is concentrated in the hands of few large corporations. And it's clear that in the food system, where till now, thanks to family farmer, thanks to the fact that we have more than 1 billion food producers around the world, farmers, peasants, pastoralists, fisher folks, nomads, all of them are food producers. And this is our insurance to keep the right to food for all, because the food system is everything but not concentrated till now. And we saw that also during the COVID crisis, because during the COVID crisis, we saw that territorial market, the local food system, were there, and they never stopped. And we never had a moment where the food was not available, thanks to all of us producing the food continuously. But at the same time, this is not true for all the other economic sector. And what is the future? What they want is that we definitely change the structure of the food system, concentrating the food system in the hands of few large corporations, and the digitalization and the global trade rules are the main access to do this concentration. That has to be clear. So when they are using this word and they are making this narrative that it's really incredible, you can listen those people filling their words and their mouth with the word of smallholders and the fact that smallholder will benefit by digitalization, but it's a digitalization that it's imposed. It's a technology that it's imposed. And when we talk about technology sovereignty, we are talking of a technology that is built on our needs. The tool that I need to work my land, to weed, the tool that I need to access to market, to organize better my organization. This is the technology that we need. This is the sovereignty that we need, because we need a technology that respects our rights. We will not be helped by a technology that will go against our needs and our rights. This is the essential element when we talk about digitalization. Digitalization is a simple tool, but for them, it's not at all a simple tool. It's the main instrument to achieve a full food concentration. And there is also this narrative that digitalization has no environmental impact. So they are saying that fundamentally, thanks to precision agriculture, you will have a less environmental impact. But no one is studying what is the impact of digitalization. What is the energy consumption of the data center? What is the impact of on the natural resources to build microchips and so on? Is anyone doing this assessment? No. Because if we start to do an assessment of the impact of digitalization and environmental assessment, then we will see that we need to revise a lot. That most probably is not true that some technology are CO2 neutral. Not at all. So we need to also address in a very important way that the digitalization has also a huge environmental impact. And this is why we need to give an answer from our side. And we need to be fast, because what is incredible is that this process is too fast and we are not reacting as we should. We need to react in a much more stronger way, because the concentration of the food system through digitalization can be really achieved in few years if we don't react immediately. So this is why we need to assess, we need to understand, at the same time, we need to use the technology that we can support our model, agroecology and so on. So this is, I hope, the starting point. And I hope that I've been in my 10 minutes. Thank you, Philip, and thank you all.
Thank you very much, Andrea. That was perfect, and thank you for situating, for putting us, like, setting a bit the broader stage and speaking about making these links between, you know, what is being promoted under these buzzwords of innovation, technology, that it's kind of linked to a very specific system or a very specific view on the food system and the way of production that is linked to industrial agriculture, and also to point out on these aspects of extraction and of data extraction. And I see that also in the chat there is already some kind of discussion starting, which is great, and we will have later on time to discuss. But I will now hand over to Morgane Audy, who is a vegetable farmer in the north of France, and she's a member of Confédération Paysanne, a peasant organization in France, and she's also a member of the coordinating committee of the European coordination via Campesina. And I am very happy, and I think this is deliberately, this event today is also to hear small-scale food producers on their views, because when we say like that the food system something is pushing like technology and innovation, as like the solution to all the problems that we have, it's very, actually, the part that is usually missing is to ask the people, those who actually produce the food, what kind of technology they already actually want, and what kind of technology they don't want and they don't need. So I think that Morgane will give us her perspective on this. And yeah, welcome Morgane, and the floor is yours.
Bonjour, merci Philippe. Donc effectivement, pour comprendre l'impact de la digitalisation sur les paysannes et les paysans, il est utile d'analyser quels ont été les impacts des nouvelles technologies en agriculture sur le moyen terme depuis la fin du 19e siècle. Et je parlerai du contexte européen, qui est celui dont j'ai l'expérience, et il sera vraiment utile de discuter avec des paysans, des paysannes et des petits producteurs d'autres régions du monde pour voir s'ils et elles partagent ou non ces analyses. Donc jusqu'à la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, les paysans européens ont eu une approche très prudente des nouvelles technologies. La question de l'autonomie était cruciale dans l'adoption ou non de nouvelles machines. Par exemple, de nombreuses innovations réalisées par les paysans en coopération avec les artisans de la communauté sont apparues au cours des 19e siècle et du début du 20e siècle. Par exemple, des machines actionnées par des manivelles ou par la force animale. À l'opposé, les nouvelles machines qui étaient alimentées par des énergies que les paysans ne maîtrisaient pas, comme l'électricité ou les moteurs à vapeur, ont rencontré une résistance importante. De nombreuses révoltes paysannes ont conduit à la destruction des premières moissonneuses-batteuses, par exemple. Cette approche prudente à l'égard des nouvelles technologies, où la question de l'autonomie était une condition essentielle pour que les paysans adoptent de nouvelles machines, a été remise en cause après la Seconde Guerre mondiale. Et ce changement de comportement est le résultat d'une propagande qui vante les mérites des équipements modernes et rabaisse les connaissances paysannes traditionnelles. En gros, soit les paysans adoptaient les tracteurs, les semences commerciales et les engrais chimiques, soit ils étaient considérés comme des gens stupides, arriérés, incapables de s'adapter. Les autres facteurs qui ont contribué sont le développement d'entreprises vendant ces machines agricoles, ces intrants et ces semences. Et aussi le développement d'offres de crédits bancaires pour acheter du matériel agricole, alors qu'auparavant, l'endettement était considéré comme une honte pour la plupart des paysans. Cette irruption rapide des nouvelles technologies en agriculture a été accompagnée par un discours sur les avantages que les paysans tireraient de l'adoption des nouveaux outils. Quelles étaient ces promesses ? Tout d'abord, une promesse d'améliorer le revenu des paysans. L'idée étant qu'ils allaient pouvoir produire plus et ainsi mieux gagner leur vie. Cependant, la modernisation de l'agriculture a surtout conduit à une captation de la valeur du travail agricole, à la fois par les entreprises en amont et par les entreprises en aval. En aval, les prix agricoles n'ont cessé de diminuer, obligeant les paysans à produire toujours plus pour juste maintenir leurs revenus. En amont, ils ont dû s'endetter pour acheter des machines, des engrais et des semences, et ainsi une partie de plus en plus importante des revenus générés par la ferme est allée au remboursement des dettes contractées avec les banques. Les paysans européens sont aujourd'hui la catégorie de la population la plus pauvre dans la société. La deuxième promesse a été de rendre le travail agricole moins pénible. Certes, la mécanisation a soulagé un certain nombre de tâches très physiques. Cependant, elle a aussi supprimé plusieurs aspects qui faisaient le bonheur du travail agricole, comme le travail collectif, le travail avec les animaux de trait ou la diversité des tâches à accomplir. La durée des journées de travail n'a pas diminué. Il suffit de voir nos voisins agriculteurs sur les tracteurs en pleine nuit pour s'en rendre compte. Par ailleurs, un mot nouveau est apparu, le stress. Couvert de dettes, de plus en plus spécialisées, isolés socialement, le mal-être des paysans s'est accru. Aujourd'hui, c'est une des professions en Europe de l'Ouest où le taux de suicide est le plus important. Ces nouvelles technologies liées à la mécanisation, à la chimie et aux nouvelles semences ont complètement changé le visage de l'agriculture européenne. Les fermes se sont spécialisées parce qu'en effet, les machines sont souvent liées à une production particulière. Si j'achète une planteuse à salade, par exemple, je vais vouloir rentabiliser cette machine en produisant beaucoup de salades et très probablement, j'abandonnerai d'autres cultures. Les champs ont pris les formes adaptées à l'utilisation des tracteurs. À partir des années 60, des milliers de kilomètres de haies et de talus ont été arasés pour agrandir les parcelles. Les paysans spécialisés sont aussi devenus dépendants de marchés de plus en plus lointains pour vendre leur production, devenant ainsi aussi dépendants des entreprises agroalimentaires et de distribution. Surtout, cette modernisation de l'agriculture a conduit à la disparition de la quasi-totalité des paysans et des paysannes en Europe. Nous sommes passés de 50% de la population qui faisait partie de l'agriculture en 1930 à moins de 2% aujourd'hui. On peut dire sans exagérer que les technologies modernes sont à l'origine d'un ethnocide de la paysannerie européenne, dont il ne reste que quelques fragments fragiles, éparpillés et menacés. La digitalisation de l'agriculture est basée sur les mêmes promesses d'améliorer les revenus et de faciliter le travail des paysans. Mais d'ores et déjà, on voit apparaître les premières fermes expérimentales entièrement robotisées, sans plus aucun paysan pour s'occuper de la terre et des animaux. Est-ce vraiment cela, ce dont la société a besoin, de supprimer les hommes et les femmes qui travaillent la terre pour les remplacer par des robots sous le contrôle de multinationales du numérique? Le renouveau paysan passe par une attitude critique vis-à-vis des technologies aliénantes et une reconquête de l'autonomie technique. Nous sommes, nous, les paysans, les paysannes, capables d'inventer et de construire des techniques dont nous avons besoin pour produire, et cela avec le soutien des communautés locales. Cela suppose de faire confiance dans nos savoir-faire paysans, de reconstruire les solidarités avec les artisans de nos territoires et de rejeter fermement l'emprise des multinationales sur nos existences. Voilà, je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Morgan, for also this situating us a bit in historically how actually this whole issue of technology is in a way recent, but also has been very fast and has been very has had very strong impact on reshaping peasant farming and small-scale food production and food systems in general, specifically in Europe. I will now hand over to our next speaker, who is Ravindu Ishan Gunaratne from the National Fisheries Solidarity Organization in Sri Lanka, and he's also the chairman of the Youth Movement for Environmental and Social Change, and he will also share some reflections from a point of view of small-scale fisheries. Ravindu, you have the floor. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Philip. Yeah, I will directly come to my topic. Actually, small-scale fisheries are diverse, dynamic, attached to livelihood and culture of the local communities. The fishing industry contributes less than 2% of the country's gross domestic product. The principal role of the fishery industry is as a provider of food. Fish is the main source of animal protein in the diet. The small-scale fishery is also an important source of employment, fulfilling a useful social function in providing work in rural areas. Exports of high-value fish products like shrimps, lobsters, sea cucumber are becoming an increasingly important source of foreign exchange. Majority of small-scale fisheries are traditional fisheries. They do not use high technology. Small-scale fisheries industry is somewhat eco-friendly. They are the people who do less harm to the sea and the environment by their occupation. Small-scale fisheries have a unique technology. It binds with the traditional knowledge and simple techniques. Even though they are less mechanized and equipped with their traditional knowledge and technology, they catch adequate fish for their majority in the countries protein supply. Small-scale fisheries have a post-harvest technology to preserve excess fish harvest. Resource depletion, poor economic performance, food and nutritional insecurity among defenseless people, and social and cultural stress are widely familiar issues in the context of small-scale fisheries. There are some significant challenges for small-scale fisheries regarding food sovereignty. As first, lack of law enforcement and irregularities on use of harmful equipment and methods to catch fish like light purse seine nets, dynamite, moxie nets. These techniques destroy the fishing grounds, fishing breeding grounds, coral reefs, and seaweed. As second, lack of capital investment support, extension services, fish preservation techniques, and guidance by the government. As third, do not have a stable and reasonable fish market price and promotion of post-harvest practices of women, distribution and marketing. As fourth, Indian trawlers with bottom trawling techniques. As fifth, foreign fishing vessels operate in our waters with the license issued as joint ventures with Sri Lankan companies like factory trawlers. As sixth, competition of resource users such as tourism and fisheries and marginalized vulnerable groups of small-scale fisheries. Promotion of blue economy paradigm of blue growth with high technology for infrastructure development, harbors, port city, industrial aquaculture, sea transportation, seabed mining, while marginalizing the SSF from the system. So these are huge challenges for the sustainability and food sovereignty because it reduces the fish resources and destroys the fisheries habitats and livelihood of traditional food producer practices of coastal communities. Small-scale fisheries, actually, it's a occupation of sustainable oriented. So as another issue with this industry is it is less support and guidance by the government. Even though they have cooperative societies, they cannot settle big issues without interference of the government authorities. They do not try to promote this small-scale fishery industry, and they do not facilitate to uplift the industry. And small-scale fisheries have received relatively little attention within both local and international. It is contended that both the assessment management of small-scale fisheries increased effort in understanding, in developing processes, mechanisms, and methods that are more attuned to the issues faced by small-scale fisheries. One of the major issues are the government promotion of joint ventures with East Asian fishing companies and encroachment by Indian trawlers. These are serious issues for a country in which more than 12% of the total population depends on the fisheries sector and where the fish is vital source of food. Fishery policies in Sri Lanka are increasingly being determined by the international law, science-based management, ideas about state sovereignty and territory, and grand development visions, all of which too often ignore fisherers' concern and livelihoods. The fishers are powerless in the face of decision taken at the level of states and international forums. These small-scale fisheries are losing their traditional knowledge and do not have proper devices and technology to predict weather conditions. Although they don't know, they do not have their technical support, but they can predict the weather by their general sense. Finally, we have to think about the food, not the money. So promotion of the small-scale fishery industry is very important based on the blue justice principles, which empowers SSF through social justice, gender justice, climate justice, and economic justice regimes. Actually, we stand for food sovereignty promoting blue justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravindo, for sharing this view or perspective on technologies by small-scale fishers, both in terms of how you're affected by let's say, some of those technologies, and also in terms of what the principles, moving us already a bit to the question of kind of what would be principles in a way to also assess technologies and to look at technologies. Our next speaker is Hamadi Abbas Mohammed, and he should speak on a perspective of pastoralists, of indigenous mobile pastoralist peoples, but I am afraid that he might have dropped off because I don't see him anymore. So I would suggest that as we try to get him back on the call, we move forward with what was supposed in a way to be the transition to the next part, which would be the discussion in smaller groups. But before that, we wanted to have also a regional perspective from Latin America, which is our time zone we are working on is not friendly for Latin Americans. So, but we have an input also from Latin America, which will be shared by Tom Wakeford from ETC Group, but it's based on experience with ETC Group, with other experiences specifically in Latin America. So Tom will speak, but he's more the messenger for that region. And please, Tom, go ahead. And in the meantime, I will try to get Hamadi back on the call so that we also have the perspective of a pastoralist from Africa. Please go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Philip. So my name is Tom Wakeford, and I'm one of the directors of an activist research group working on technology assessment, known as the ETC Group. And as Philip said, I'm sharing this statement from the ETC Group colleagues in Latin America. The statement is based on the results of a participatory assessment of the new waves of disruptive technologies in Latin America. This has taken the form of months of discussions and exchanges of information among several networks in Latin America that took place both during the pandemic and preceded it. Among these networks are TECLA, which is the Latin American Network for the Social Assessment of Technologies, the Latin American Coordination of Peasant Organizations, CLOC, ALI, which is the Latin American Information Agency, the World March of Women in Latin America, who I see are presenting in a parallel session on feminism right now, and the Central Única de Trabajadores de Brasil, which is the largest trade union in Brazil. So this, the results of this I'm sharing as the context in which these technologies have arrived, the violated rights, and then finishing with some demands. So the Latin American context, the push for disruptive technologies is taking place in locations where local people have already suffered resource grabbing, water depletion, soil erosion, and are often forced into slave labor in order to produce crops for export. Now, as I go on to the threats, I'm going to share with you a graphic which brings to life disruptive technology in the context of existing agricultural systems. So on your screen, you should be able to see a graphic which represents this. So the disruptive technology is represented by this gray machine here. Firstly, threats to land and water. Digital enclosure removes people from the land without their involvement. An example of that is the digital enclosures in Amazonia financed by the World Bank. Digitally enabled land and water grabs by extractive industries and big ag corporations, and including financial technologies, exacerbates this problem. And the financial technologies such as blockchain mean that people can't even seek legal redress because these digital contracts don't allow it. Remote digital surveillance across territories that sustain thousands of communities enables the monitoring and often killing of environmental defenders, activists. Resource extraction for massive fabrication of disruptive technology directly competes with food production, water harvesting, and poisons the agro-ecosystem. The second set of rights is the right to health. Drones for fumigation are already flying over crops, fumigating them with some precision, but they spray toxins over human beings with much less precision. There's been a rise in slave labor, particularly on the industrialized berry farms in Honduras, Costa Rica, and in many parts of Mexico. Mechanized fruit harvesting is further intensified and made more harmful by new technologies. So last set of threats is the threat to livelihoods and know-how. In the area known as the Pampas region, which already has monocultures of GM soya, there are now driverless tractors. This, along with many other of these technologies, is leading to a de-skilling and will further erode the ability to cultivate crops, to rear animals, and to fish without control of corporations, rather than what's needed, which is a reskilling in agroecology. And it will permanently erode the right to perceive the world with a sensitivity to the living world that is impossible to achieve with industrial technologies. And finally, there's a predation on migrant workers by the new apps on phones and other financial tech. Migrants' remittances are key to people's income in places like Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and these are being diverted and lost without redress by these apps. And finally, this, of course, all of the above exacerbates the economic divide. So the demands that there should be time and capacities to undertake assessment of new technologies. There should be a joining of forces between communities and the public sector to stop the data grab and associated resource grabs, and that national governments refuse electronic trade agreements. And finally, there should be a reconceptualization or even hacking of these new technologies so that they can protect local communities and individuals and reduce exploitation by corporations. So we expect there to be more concrete examples which we and others can share in the breakout rooms. Thank you, gracias. I'll pass back to you, Philip.
Thank you very much, Tom, for this also visual, kind of visual representation of what technology means or what a certain type of technology means. And I'm very happy that Hamadi is back with us on the call. His connection is not very stable, but I still hope he can make it. So I will give the floor to him before we move up into kind of smaller groups for the discussion. So Hamadi Abbas Mohammed, he's from an organization of indigenous communities from the northern regions of Mali, based in Timbuktu, that is called Ajmor. I hope that's correct, pronounced correctly. And he's also a member of WAMIP, which is the World Alliance of Mobile Indigenous Peoples. So please, Hamadi, you have the floor and welcome.
Oui, merci Philippe de m'avoir donné la parole. Effectivement, mon réseau est instable, donc je vais devoir couper ma caméra. Est-ce que vous me recevez? Vous me recevez bien? Je vais couper ma caméra parce que mon réseau n'est pas stable.
Ok. Oui, nous vous entendons. Mais oui, mais merci. Merci d'éteindre votre caméra, comme ça on va pouvoir vous écouter.
Ok, merci. Merci donc, merci de m'avoir invité à cet événement. Technologie dans le cadre de la souveraineté alimentaire. Donc, je vais intervenir sur 2 points. Le premier point, c'est par rapport à la promesse faite par le sommet, libérer le potentiel du numérique et d'autres nouvelles technologies pour résoudre la crise d'aujourd'hui et rendre le système alimentaire durable. Le deuxième point, c'est quels sont le deuxième point, c'est la souveraineté technologique. De quel type d'innovation et de technologie les petits producteurs alimentaires ont-ils besoin et veulent-ils? Je pense que pour le premier point, libérer le potentiel du numérique, je pense pour ma part qu'il s'agit là d'une grande ambition. L'action de rendre le système alimentaire durable et sain est une bonne chose et c'est très important de s'y engager. Toutefois, la question d'introduction de nouvelles technologies relève, à mon avis, d'un jeu de loterie qui peut avoir des résultats probants dans certaines parties du monde et pas dans d'autres pour diverses raisons. D'abord, toutes les régions du monde ne sont pas au même niveau de scolarisation, de formation et d'équipement. L'accessibilité aux technologies suppose entre autres une maîtrise des techniques et des moyens pour s'équiper en technologie et pouvoir assurer la maintenance. Il y a les facteurs socioculturels. Il y a plusieurs questions auxquelles il faut répondre. Comment codifier les connaissances et savoirs traditionnels des peuples autochtones et des communautés locales qui sont conservateurs de leur patrimoine? Ça, c'est dans le cadre de la numérisation. Comment faire cette conciliation avec l'utilisation de nouvelles technologies? Comment susciter la confiance des producteurs les plus conservateurs? Voilà, entre autres, des questions auxquelles on devra trouver des réponses au moment où la communauté internationale veut nous engager dans la numérisation, dans le système de numérisation des systèmes alimentaires. Les nouvelles technologies ont certes accéléré la vitesse par laquelle les échanges et les relations sont entretenus, mais l'application de ces technologies au système de production ne peut pas être déclarée comme un pari gagné du fait des facteurs ci-dessus mentionnés. Il faut rappeler que les politiques des systèmes alimentaires et la nutrition relèvent de la responsabilité des États, même si le secteur privé est un acteur de réalisation qui a un rôle important à jouer dans la collecte, l'analyse et la gestion des données. Ce rôle, il le joue sous la responsabilité des pouvoirs publics, car ça relève de la souveraineté des États. On constate aujourd'hui que l'isolement de certains producteurs d'aliments rend difficile la collecte de leurs données. Ceci pousse les analystes à faire des projections prévisionnelles qui peuvent souvent déformer la réalité d'un territoire. L'analphabétisme et le manque d'encadrement technique dans certaines régions constituent des facteurs de blocage à la valorisation de la parole des acteurs et à obtenir des informations de qualité les concernant. Voilà pour le premier point qui consiste à répondre à la promesse du sommet, c'est-à-dire libérer le potentiel du numérique et d'autres nouvelles technologies. S'agissant du deuxième point, la souveraineté technologique, de quel type d'innovation et de technologie les petits producteurs alimentaires ont-ils besoin et veulent-ils? Moi, je pense que déjà, on peut évoquer les difficultés rencontrées dans l'utilisation du téléphone portable et de l'Internet. Nous avons des difficultés jusqu'à présent, malgré que ces dernières années ont été marquées par un élargissement des équipements du GSM, Global System for Mobile Communication. Le constat est là, il y a des insatisfactions. Dans plusieurs régions du monde, on a des difficultés d'accès d'Internet et du web. Les communications sont difficiles. Je pense que le premier besoin à satisfaire, c'est celui lié à l'accès aux nouvelles technologies, aux nouvelles techniques de communication et de l'information appelées TIC. Ça facilite non seulement les échanges, l'apprentissage et la formation dans tous les domaines. D'autres technologies, entre autres, sont indispensables aux paysans petits producteurs, notamment l'irrigation grâce à l'utilisation des énergies solaires et éoliennes. Voilà des technologies indispensables pour améliorer la production alimentaire et les systèmes alimentaires. Avec l'utilisation des énergies solaires, d'autres technologies peuvent être introduites dans certaines zones où elles sont inexistantes, à savoir les chaînes de froid pour la transformation et la conservation d'aliments périssables, élargir l'électrification rurale à usage domestique et industriel, l'utilisation de certains types d'outils agricoles moins polluants, je dis bien moins polluants. Nos paysans ont une parfaite connaissance de leur terroir et une capacité résiliente d'adaptation dans la pratique de l'agriculture familiale et les techniques traditionnelles agroécologiques. Donc, sur ce, je pense que l'introduction de nouvelles technologies dans les systèmes de production est à prendre avec précaution. Merci, je vous remercie beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup à toi. And thanks to all the speakers for your stimulating inputs and diverging views from different perspectives, different parts of the world. We've heard already quite a few elements on agenda setting for technology sovereignty. We've heard about autonomy, solidarity. We have heard about the role of trade deals and digitalization in enabling land grabbing. So what we would want to do now is to build further upon that discussion in breakout groups. We have asked you to put an F or an E in front of your name so we know whether you want to join a breakout group in French or English. I hope that worked now. We will assume that if you haven't managed to put any letter in front of your name, that you will be an English speaker. And if you're in the wrong group, we will still find a way to resolve that. Please also, if you could add it in the chat if you still need help to put an E or an F in front of your name. Okay, so what will we be discussing in the breakout groups? As I said earlier, it's up to us to work collectively on our own agenda of technology in the context of food sovereignty, and we have to do it now. Like, they're moving fast. We have to come up with our own answers and agendas. So what we would like to do during the breakout groups is to discuss, based upon your experiences, under which conditions can technologies contribute to food sovereignty. And we will ask you to discuss the conditions that you think are contributing for technologies to contribute to food sovereignty, and the conditions that are preventing us to move towards food sovereignty. So this will be repeated in the breakout groups. Don't worry about that. So we discuss, based upon your experience, under which conditions can technologies contribute to food sovereignty. You will be asked soon to join a breakout group. Please do accept the invitation if you want to be part of the discussions in the breakout group. And we will ask you to add your IDs on a Jamboard, for which I put the link in the chat now, but also this will be explained again in your breakout groups. We will be there for around 20 minutes and then come back to the main room to have a wrap-up and discussion for this session. So,
sorry, one last thing. I will also join one breakout group. So I put now the people that didn't put an E or an F in front of their name in the English-speaking breakout groups. But if you are French-speaking, please put now in the chat an F so I can adapt it. Because when the breakout groups have been started, it will be not so easy to change, to move you to another breakout group. So yes, give me one more second that we are all in the right rooms and nobody is in a room where he doesn't speak the language. Okay, this looks all good. Okay, I open now all the rooms. Philip and I You stay here for 1 second in the plenary. We sort this out directly. Okay.
Thank you, Mutta. So you will now receive an invitation. Please join the breakout groups and see you back here in a bit.
Philip, can you see now?
Yes, I can. I'm English 3, right?
Yes.
I'm joining now.
Marinella, are you English speaking? I assign you now to English.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. It's always kind of nice to see that this actually works in some way, most of the time at least. So yeah, I hope you had interesting discussions in your respective group. Oh, maybe I check, is translation working, interpretation working now? Do we have French? Can somebody just give me a sign if French is working? Is interpretation working? Yes, I get a thumbs up. Okay, then that's good. Okay, so I hope you had good discussions in your groups. I did have interesting discussion in my group. We have captured those. The idea was not to have a full report back now. And anyway, time is almost over. As always, it's too short, but I think it was important that we had this moment of sharing. I think it's also part of, you know, what we criticize about the summit is that things are pre-cooked. And while I think part of the food sovereignty movement is also kind of this belief in that kind of together we can, like the collective intelligence is also discursive, right? And it's discussion and it's about process. So we'll not have time, but I just want to like give you just the possibility for any one of you who feels like that he or she like feels strongly to share something before the end of this meeting, just like based on what you've heard. And maybe based on your discussion, so and maybe also about this issue of, or one take also could be, or one aspect of it is this, we framed this event as the title was technology sovereignty. But I mean, that's kind of in a way a provocation because it's not necessarily something that we all agree on. So I wonder also if there might be some reflections, final reflections by some of you on this issue of, you know, okay, but, you know, do we need this thing of technology sovereignty, or do we already is that already covered by food sovereignty, or anyway, is the concept or that term or that idea wrong in the first place for whatever reasons, and there might be much better things that we should actually be talking about something else than technology sovereignty. So I'm just kind of, for just like 3 minutes, very short inputs, if you have some reaction, happy to hear those. And I see that Mute has her hand up, so please just, if you want to speak after Mute, just indicate it now so we can have 2 or 3 people and then we do the final wrap up and we think together how to take this conversation further. Mute, please.
I just want to feedback from our working group. We had a really wide joint understanding that it's crucial that food producers are developed in the development, in the adaptation, and of digital tools and technologies. So they're not only seen as end users, they're actually taking part. And this also should allow them to adapt it to the local needs. So we had a strong local approach to this. This was one of the results from our little discussion.
Philip, you're muted.
Sorry. Okay, thanks for that. And I will just pick up on something that Morgan just put in the chat, and I will invite you to develop that on a bit further if you want, because you said that maybe it's not technology, sovereignty is not the right word. Maybe it's better to speak of technology autonomy. And then I just kind of, maybe you want to say something about that. And then technology autonomy is part of food sovereignty, or is it something different? Or yeah, looking just forward to seeing. And I see Andrea, and I guess then that we have almost to close the round. But Morgan, you have the floor, please.
Oui, je vais parler en français. Oui, il me semble que le mot autonomie technique est plus approprié parce qu'il concerne en fait nous directement les producteurs d'alimentation. Et l'autonomie technique participe à la souveraineté alimentaire, qui me semble être quelque chose de plus général. Quand on parle de souveraineté alimentaire, on parle notamment de politique commerciale. Et c'est évident que là, les États ont un rôle à jouer pour mettre en place du protectionnisme, pour nous protéger, nous, petits producteurs. Et donc, ça a vraiment du sens de parler de souveraineté alimentaire. Mais par contre, on ne veut pas que les États contrôlent les techniques et les technologies que nous, petits paysans, on utilise dans nos fermes On veut que ce soit nous, sur nos fermes, avec nos collègues localement, avec les artisans localement, qui contrôlions les techniques qu'on utilise et pas les États. Et ça, c'est important et c'est une des raisons pour lesquelles il me semble plus approprié de parler d'autonomie que de souveraineté en termes de technique et de technologie. Voilà.
Okay, thanks. That's point taken. I see people are reacting on in the chat on that, which is also nice. I have two more, and then I guess we have to leave it. And I would first give the floor to Pandu. Pandu,
hello. Yes,
your hand up.
Yeah,
please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay.
Go ahead.
As a farmer coming from the tropical forests in Western Ghats in India, I feel that at any way, the technology is going to be there. It is going to come. So I think in that context, we need to get ourselves prepared to work with this kind of new technologies, and how far we can challenge the established great multinationals. For example, in India, Microsoft is helping to build the baseline, which is called AgriStack. The entire information system, the data collected from small farmers to be used by these multinationals. So the basic question of who owns it and whether it is really going to help the small farmers is very, very crucial and important, without which I think smallholders will be more exploited by this technology rather than helping them in the short and long run. Thank you.
Thank you for that as well. And yeah, I give the floor to Andrea, and then Olivier in the chat has asked for the floor, and then I will definitely host, but maybe Andrea, you go first.
1 minute, yes, based on that, we need the regulation. It's clear that all this impact of digitalization is having without any regulation at international level. And indeed, when we talk about food sovereignty, we are talking about rights and about rights to defend and protect our knowledge. And this is the central element. We are talking of knowledge, we are talking of our autonomy to set a model that is based on our knowledge. And our knowledge drives us our appropriate technology. And technology is everything, is a plug, is something to help you to seed, and it's a digital tool to support you in access to market. But this, we need to control that. And control is linked to autonomy and it's linked to our rights. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. And so the last word is for Olivier Keller. Please. Please, very short because our interpreters are tired. Please, Olivier.
Oui, c'est à moi qu'on a donné la parole.
Oui, s'il vous plaît, oui, si vous voulez bien, 1 minute si c'est possible, parce que là,
oui, je vais essayer. J'ai juste quand même traduit quelque chose sur l'histoire entre l'autonomie alimentaire et la souveraineté alimentaire, et signifier que dans les prémices de la définition de la souveraineté alimentaire que nous plaidons communément, il faut quand même mettre une injonction qui est quand même l'alimentation n'est pas une marchandise comme une autre. Et je pense que c'est les premières prémices qu'il faut mettre qui contribuent à cette réflexion. La deuxième, c'est que jusqu'à maintenant, on nous a fait croire que l'autonomie alimentaire existait. Elle n'existe qu'en valeur marchande et non pas en valeur alimentaire, c'est-à-dire l'équilibre sur des territoires. Enfin, pour en revenir aux réflexions concernant la technologie, je pense que l'autonomie technique, effectivement, est intéressante, mais à quelle fin? S'il n'y a pas de contrôle au niveau sanitaire et de contrôle au niveau qualitatif, gustatif et environnemental, qui va faire le contrôle? Le beau savoir des paysans a montré qu'il a été capable de détruire la moitié de la planète. Je m'arrête là.
Okay, thank you. And I think there is nothing else for me to do to close this discussion at this point, which is not an easy task to do a wrap up. And I very much feel like, and I see also that in the chat, there are several persons suggesting kind of to continue this discussion. And I very much feel that this was, yeah, kind of maybe not the start, but it was like one step in a discussion that is still ongoing, both in terms of, you know, the concepts, the terminology that we use, but also kind of very, yeah, kind of like very kind of bigger questions on technology, on the politics of technologies, the power imbalances that do technologies, but even also in the groups that I was in, also this this issue of kind of what actually do we do when we speak about technology, and also already the word technology and innovations, these kind of words that are not neutral, and very specifically also what was mentioned at several times also, that kind of reclaim that as well, and for peasants, for small-scale food producers, being innovators and being developers of technology, always having been developers of technology, in this perspective of autonomy, definitely, and then yeah, there is this issue of control, and yeah, and I guess we will not resolve the issue of technology sovereignty if that's the right terminology, but I think it can be useful just kind of to have this debate. I think I cannot do much more than to thank all of you, to thank all the team that was helping with getting this done, to thank the interpreters. We have captured the outcomes of the discussion in the breakout groups. I think as the organizations who have organized this, we will kind of look at those and we will sit together, and I think there's definitely, the message has come across, has arrived, that there is an interest in continuing these kinds of debates, and I think we will try to see in what way we can contribute to that. And yeah, apart from that, yeah, thank you again. Also, this is the third day of the Counter-Mobilization Against the Food System Summit. There are still some events later today. There is also a final plenary tomorrow. Thanks for being part of this, and yeah, thanks to you all, thanks to our interpreters, and yeah, see you all soon in a different setting, but always with rich discussions. Thank you all, and have a nice day, afternoon, evening, wherever you may be, and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye to all.